a lot of it seemed exaggerated at the time. I mean, me having purple and blue hair, who'd seen that before? And then some of these costumes we had on at the very end. And then also to be walking through, metal detectors to get into class. In Canada, we hadn't had that experience. But I live in Santa Monica, and my son lives in Santa Monica, which is supposed to be a safe area. He's 14 years old. He's already had 10 lockdowns.
Rightly or wrongly, I think the Canadians have a view of Americans as and I can look back at it now and say, oh, it's campy and it's fun. I don't think that we thought that kind of a scenario was off.
They asked me if I come in for the role of Erin, Noble's role, the nice girl next door. And I came in and I said, can I really play the part of the punk rocker? I said, because I always get to play the girl next door. And they said, but we really see you as that role. I said, I know. I said, but it's so boring. I don't even have to open my mouth to be the girl next door. I said, please let me come back. I said, I've got brothers and I've seen their friends and I know how to behave that way. Believe me, I can be tough.
Come and get it, teacher.
So I went away and came back for another audition dressed as a punker and had the tough attitude, and they couldn't believe it. And I got the part, and I was so delighted, especially after I saw Erin's part, because once again, yes, I've done that.
Although I was playing a good girl in the film, I think all young kids feel that kind of, you're not the boss of me, anti-authority. So I think that it was exciting.
When I work with John Huston and like all the great directors I work with, like Claude Chabrol and Hal Ashby and J. Lee Thompson, that's what they said. You get a great script, and Mark had a great script, and you get great actors, and you and the best in each department, and you let them do their work. He was open to new ideas, and ergo open to my coming back and being this other character. And also during the shooting too, he was always so approachable and open to ideas. To adding something in the script, like I said, I'd like my character. I was always trying to think of things for my character to do because she never talked, Patsy, and there was never really anything for me to do in the scene because the guys were assigned to beat up people. So I was constantly trying to think of things that would make my character have some purpose. The glass, when I walk down the alleyway and I take the bottle and I hit it and I put it against Michael J. Fox's neck. That was something that I had thought about. Or being a voyeur, so taking a Polaroid, remember Polaroid cameras, instead of digital photos, to show Perry King that his wife had been raped. And the famous thing after that, to get Perry King to walk down the aisles, when I went, that was mine. So he was very open to all that, and I really admired him because he had no ego. He really made it a collaborative art, which really film should be.
He was young, is what I remember thinking, was that how young he was to be doing this sort of a project.
All I want to do is learn.
All right. You boys get the benefit of the doubt this time. But from now on, when you go into a washroom, you go alone.
This was shot in Canada, so we were very clear in our delineation between who were the LA actors and who were the Canadian actors. In terms of our minds, the Canadian minds. When Tim came up, he was just the nicest guy. He was nice, he was sweet, he was soft, he was generous, he was kind.
You jerks don't belong here.
You shut your hole, you little dyke!
You don't scare me, freako.
I'm so happy to what's become of him because, he's this very successful director on Boardwalk Empire. He was very unhappy on the film. I don't think he wanted to be an actor anymore, and he had this legacy. And I remember him talking about, oh yeah, I got to go back to LA and audition for Grease 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer, and I really just don't want to do it. And thinking back, yeah, he would have been right for that. And he was totally not Hollywood. He had a girlfriend at the time that was a daycare teacher, and he was doing these decathlons. And I guess acting was like a sidebar. So I'm really proud of him because I think he's really doing what he likes to do. And I hope I get to meet him again. I never think of writing him and saying, hey, what about a part for me? Because a lot of the people, when they move on to something else, they don't want to hear about it, and they don't want to be associated with the people from that production.
Teacher. Learn your lessons. Mommy didn't like you very much.
Lay off me! Lay off me, Skinner, you hear me?
Shut up, you son of a bitch. If you ever come here again, and I'll kill you.
Perry King, a consummate actor, no matter what was going on, he was focused, he was giving his best, and a real gentleman. A real gentleman. And it's great that you meet people years later. I met him at the Hollywood Autograph Show, and there he was, and just the Perry King that I always remembered, warm, giving.
I just remember thinking that he was a very handsome guy and very professional. Seemed to know a lot about camera angles and lenses and where he was in that mix. And I learned a little bit from him, from just watching him.
I don't think I can teach anymore. I can't get through.
Roddy McDowall can outact anyone. And I thought, again, very smart of Mark Lester. He was in Blackboard Jungle. So how smart to have him in this. And but I'm telling you, that guy, he can emote, and it's happening to him. And I was terrified. I'm having a scene, and it's my face and Roddy McDowall. And, to hold your own. And he again, a consummate actor and gentleman, and not a snob, approachable. And then afterwards, I had to ask him a scary thing. I said, I needed letters for immigration from very famous people. And I asked him if he'd write a letter for me, and no hesitation. And I still have it.
School's out, teacher. You're not welcome here.
The only scene that I had with Roddy McDowall was the alley scene. And I didn't have any lines with him. But I remember he was sitting in a chair, waiting for his bit. And I had a friend visiting me from out of town, and she went over and talked to him. And they had this long conversation. And I remember thinking, my friend talked to Roddy McDowall, and I didn't. I was too intimidated to go over and say hello to him. So I never did, and I regret that, because I think he died shortly afterwards.
Summers, man, tuba.
You don't know that's a trumpet. We're all in big trouble.
Trumpet, man, they've been lying to me all these years.
I didn't know who he was. He hadn't done Family Ties, and all I remember is he started complaining about he hated his haircut. He thought he looked like a dweeb. I think he sort of straddled both countries. I do remember one of his first checks that he got, he asked me if I would cover it for him because he didn't have a Canadian bank account. And I said I couldn't because I didn't have enough money in the bank. And he looked at me kind of surprised, and I thought, that's the difference between American and Canadian actors. Keith, God rest his soul. Keith, he was a big guy. I know he played a brute in the film, but he was anything but. He was just a very sweet, kind, funny, really talented guy.
I'd never related to Keith Knight as this tough guy. He never played those types before. And he always played those nice teddy bear types. And so that was interesting for me to see the end result and to see how effective he was. And then I didn't know, it was just kind of an urban legend that he had died. And I just found out, I think on my last interview that I did for a film, that he had passed away. It was kind of I had to ask around, well, how did he die? Yeah, brain cancer.
If you don't stay awake now, bitch, you're never gonna wake up again.
Neil Clifford. Neil, what I remembered about him, it was just so painful. But this is, I guess, what happens in productions. I don't know, I've never been in this position. I know they let people go home if they're sick. His wife was having a baby while we were shooting. It was the moment she was giving birth, and they wouldn't let him leave. And so I always remember that. How painful is that? What are the legalities? Because he thought, he was saying, well, do I just leave and walk off? And I didn't know. I didn't know what the answer was.
When he had his baby, I don't think that he could remember any lines that next day. He was just so goo-goo and gaga about his baby because he was there and he talked about it. So that's what I remember about Neil. And what an awesome body he had because he was a dancer.
Come on, wherever you are.
I never spoke to Stefan, even though he was in the movie, because I was afraid of him. I thought he was the real thing. He was so scary. Even though he was this thin, tiny guy, he was just way out there. And I guess he's method, because he never broke who he was. And recently, in the past couple of years, he Facebooked me, and I was initially afraid. It was like, and from just what he's posted online, he's just such an artist. And that's what it was. And he's multi-talented. He's not just an actor. When he posts the kind of music he's interested in, or art, or what he has to say, he's just the all-around consummate artist.
Lisa was hot, And she got to wear the really short miniskirts, and I felt like a dweeb next to her. So I kept going to wardrobe and saying, "Can you shorten my skirt? Because I feel kind of unattractive."
We had real extras, and it was at a time when punk rockers were only wearing black and white, and I was avant-garde, and they had me having pink and purple hair and really and colors in my in what I wore as well. And so they didn't think I was authentic, and they really resented me for it. Now the guy punk rockers didn't say anything to me, but the women said, "We're going to get you in the bathroom." And if you notice in the dance scene when everyone's slamming one another, I'm not there. I made sure I hid in my trailer and was hoping that Mark didn't think, "Now where's Patsy that she's not in this scene?" Because I knew they'd get me then.
I think it was a pretty fast shooting schedule. I think setups were pretty fast. The atmosphere could be sometimes chaotic because there were a lot of students, a lot of extras, and sometimes when we're all playing rowdy kids, it's hard to turn that off. We had the Toronto Junior Symphony as our orchestra, and so I remember, and we were shooting in a real school, and it was lovely to sort of wander the halls and hear chamber music coming from different classrooms because the students would be practicing their own music.
When they had the rumble, all of them, it was really cold. It doesn't look like it, and muddy and rainy. And I was thinking, oh God, those guys, those actors, they had to stay outside all day. And I was in the trailer reading Shelley Winter's biography. When I hit the bottle too, this was the difference too. There's just no budget. I remember Mark Lester being really angry that they had to bring up these breakaway bottles from Hollywood because they just didn't exist in Canada. And so they only ordered 2. And he said, "Why did you only order 2? What if something goes wrong and it doesn't get hit the right way?" So there was this real pressure for any Canadian film actor at that time, for any actor. Because in those days, there were 2 takes. The first take, and then the second take, just in case there was hair in the camera. So if you're good in those films, you're really good. Because when I got here and they're doing 8, 10, 11, 12, I used to think there was something that I was doing wrong. But they just have huge budgets, and they can just go and go and go and edit it till everything's perfect. And then they redo voices in ADR. And if there's something wrong with you in a big studio picture here, there's something wrong. Because they can take lisps out of your voice, deepen your voice. They can just, and they take so many takes and add it together. Yeah, there's something wrong. If you do a studio picture, you're not good.
We haven't had a turnout like this since the night one of the little bastards set fire to the West Wing.
A few years ago, I was at a 4th of July party in Malibu. This gal came up to me and she said, "You see those young guys over there?" And they looked to be about 12, but they were probably in their mid-20s. And I said, "Yes." "They think that they know you from a film called Classe of 1984. And when I went, "Oh, yeah," they erupted. Said, "Yeah, I knew it. And I went over there, and they all wanted pictures with me. And they said that they had their, one guy said he had a poster from the film over his bed. And I had not a clue that it was had any kind of a cult following or that it was popular with anybody until these young kids said, "Oh yeah, we love it." So that was the first I knew.
But I get people now Facebooking me, and it's not so much the evilness of Patsy. They kind of like other things about Patsy, the swagger, and they love that. Again, my reading of Elizabeth Taylor when he said, "Well, what's your name?" And I go, "Elizabeth Taylor."
Supposed to be here? What's your name?
Elizabeth Taylor.
Face the music, teacher.
Wait a minute. You're in this class. Sit down.
Sit on this, motherfucker.
I think it's the music, the look. Also, people are really into the 80s now. They collect VHS. They like that it's grainy. It's a time that they didn't experience, and so they're reliving it. And it's also probably something they can share with their parents. I mean, that was something, I've got a 14-year-old, and he's old enough now that I can show him these things. He's very funny because he's didn't know about my career. And he came home one day and he said, "Mom, why are you on Wikipedia?"